get it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ. Hopefully you guys are having a phenomenal start to you guys' week on this great Monday. Hopefully you guys also had a remarkable weekend as well. So we got a lot to get on today's show. Make sure we get the audio coming through right. We are good to go. So I hope you guys are having a phenomenal weekend. What's up, man? I see you already tuning in boxing, talking up north. What's up, my man? How you doing, brother? Hope you're doing good, man. Appreciate y'all as well. So we got a lot to get into on tonight's show. Obviously, I haven't talked to you guys since Thursday, which we gave a fight preview of the Diego Pacheco fights, all those other things going down. I'm going to be getting into all that on tonight's show as well. But we're also getting into a lot of boxing news. Obviously, we have lots of news that came out over the duration of the past, what has it been, 3 or 4 days now. Also, I'm going to give you guys a fight preview as Wednesday. For some reason, midweek this week, we're going to have 3 cards going down. Matchroom has a card going down in the UK featuring a lot of prospects. You're also going to have Tim Tszyu making his return out in Australia. And then a massive Japanese card featuring 3 World Championship fights, all going down on Wednesday. So lots to get in today's show. But as always, if you guys are tuning in on any platform, make sure to keep the chat active. I'll make sure to address all those questions or topics as you guys bring them up. And if you guys are tuning on YouTube, make sure to smash that likes button. I appreciate y'all as well. And Ryan, I see you tuning in as well, man. God bless. Hopefully all is well as well, my man. So let's get right to it, though. I'm going to get into a fight recap of what went down this weekend. And the biggest one that went down was the matchroom card featuring Diego Pacheco. Now, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I wasn't very impressed. Now, I want to say this very clear about Diego Pacheco. I think Diego Pacheco has talent. I think he's got a very good, bright future. But the problem is that while he is very, very young, we're starting to talk about Diego Pacheco in the light of him being a legitimate contender, possibly even a world champion. And I just don't see that at this moment in time. When we talk about his past 3 fights, Steven Nelson, Trevor McCumbee, and now Kevin Sadjo, none of these were performances that I look at and say, you know what? This man is ready to go challenge the likes of a Hamzah Sheeraz, a Christian Billy, even a Lester Martinez, or any of those types of guys. And this is not a shot at Diego Pacheco because he is very, very young. I think he's going to be great in the future. I think he's got a very bright future. But the problem is, like I said, we're not at this crossroads where when we head into 2026, this is a man who I think we all look at and say, okay, already rumors are starting to echo out that, okay, Hamzah Sheeraz is an option for him. We're also looking at an opportunity for Jaime Munguia. That's who at least Eddie Hearn and Diego Pacheco called out. And if we're ready for this level, we're talking top 10 guys at 168, I'm not sure he's ready for that. Because what we witnessed this past weekend, I'm just going to break down the fight for you. Yes, he won the fight. I don't think anybody questioned it. He won the fight. Unanimous decision, 117-110 on one scorecard, 116-111 on the other, 115-112 on the final scorecard. It was not a, close fight. But when we look at the way he performed, it was not pleasant. It was not entertaining. A lot of grabbing. And I mean holding nonstop. The entire fight, there just was not a lot of action. And I think Kevin Sadjo is a good fighter. But once again, if we're talking about him now being in position to go fight the likes of a Jaime Munguia, a Hamzah Sheeraz, even throw out a Charlo or a Caleb Plant, Lester Martinez, Christian Billy, any of those types of guys, I'm a little bit concerned about that. And I want to know you guys' thoughts. What's your guys' thoughts on this man? Because Diego Pacheco, as I said, he is very, very young. I think Diego Pacheco will get everything together in the future. I think what we witnessed this past year against McCumbee, against Steven Nelson, now against Kevin Sadjo, that these are all things that's going to learn. He's going to learn from them. He's going to get better and better. And by 2026, he is going to be a man that when we talk about him, he's going to be in a good position in the future. But I'm not quite sure if Diego Pacheco is ready for that in early 2026. If we're talking about him fighting Munguia or Hamzah Sheeraz right at the gate, I'm concerned about that for him. And so I'm going to just get right to it now. There are 2 options on the table. Chris Mannix came out and said that talks are already ongoing between Munguia's team and Diego Pacheco's team for a fight going down. It was a very competitive fight as well. And then the Ring decided to go out there and post, I think it was moments after the fight, that Riyadh Season is very interested in staging an explosive super middleweight showdown between undefeated contenders Hamzah Sheeraz and Diego Pacheco. This date could be February 2026 is the target date. I'm going to be honest with those 2 options right there. If you are Eddie Hearn, Diego Pacheco, stay far away from Hamzah Sheeraz right now. I don't want to see that fight right now. If that fight goes down, I think Hamzah Sheeraz puts an obliteration on this man very quickly. Not saying he's not going to be ready for it one day down the road, but right now, Jaime Munguia is the route to go with. And if you're Eddie Hearn in Matchroom, you need to position Diego Pacheco, if he's going to make that jump in 2026, is to go fight Jaime Munguia. Munguia has had lackluster performance after lackluster performance in the past 2 or 3 fights now. If you're looking at anybody on the table, I'm going to go pursue Jaime Munguia. I think that's the right stepping stone for Diego Pacheco. I think that's the man that you want to go out there and compete with. And if that's the route, I'm all for that. But if you are Diego Pacheco and Eddie Hearn, do not go down the Hamzah Sheeraz path. It makes no sense at this point in time. I don't think it's a fight that most people want to go out there and witness. And I think it's just time to continue to build up this man appropriately. Right step at the right step. Hamzah Sheeraz, you can make a case. Obviously, Canelo and Bud Crawford are in their own tier, probably going to do a rematch. But after that, you can make a very good debate that Sheeraz is number one contender outside of those two guys right there. And if you're going to make that jump from a Kevin Sadhuho or McCumbee and a Steven Nelson all the way up to number one, that's too big of a gap. Build them up the right way. Go fight Jaime Munguia. I think that's the fight to make. It's the perfect fight hosted out in LA or somewhere in California. Perfect fight opportunity. That's the hope. That's the fight I do want to see happen in 2026. But let me know your guys' thoughts. What's your guys' thoughts on Diego Pacheco? Were you guys impressed by him? Not so impressed. I know, like I said, I'm not the highest on that performance there. But let me know your guys' thoughts. Yo, what's up, Johnny, man? Appreciate y'all for tuning in as well. I'll talk soon. And just a quick shout out real quickly. I will be actually going live with Johnny here on Wednesday. We're going to get the details sorted out tomorrow. But yes, make sure to tune on that. We'll be chopping it up live on Wednesday. So make sure to tune into that show as well coming up this week. So I'll let you guys know about that later on in the week as well. But let's go down the rest of this matchroom card. The co-main event, Joe Cordina, Gabriel Flores Jr., they fought to unanimous decision in way of Joe Cordina, 117-110, 115-112, and then 114-113. I thought it was a good fight. Cordina won the fight very clearly in my eyes. I thought it was an entertaining fight. Solid performance. Here's what I'm going to say. Abdullah Mason is going to be fighting Joe Cordina next. This was already announced all the way back when the Sam Noakes fight was all getting made that Abdullah Mason was going to have 180 days to make this fight get done with the number one spot, and this obviously now goes to none other than Joe Cordina. Let's be honest right now. The way that Abdullah Mason fought in that Noakes fight impressed me. I know a lot of people are going to always talk about the fact that, okay, this man got hit, this man took a lot of shots, this man didn't have the best defense, all these different aspects. But at the end of the day, we saw a young cat go into that ring against a good, testy veteran, and he won that fight. That was impressive. And if we're looking at talent-wise, and I've watched a lot of UK boxing, I would prefer Noakes over Cordina. Now, I like Cordina a lot. Obviously a good fighter. But when we talk about a matchup between Cordina and Abdullah Mason, I think Abdullah Mason wins that fight easily. I don't think it's been competitive. And I actually think it's perfect for Abdullah Mason as well because when we look at 135, there's talent. Shakur Stevenson, Tank Davis, you throw in Floyd Schofield, we'll be talking about momentarily. A lot of guys in this weight class of 135, Ram Martaya, Andy Cruz, so on and so forth. I think the right gut jump is to go defend your belt a couple times. There's not going to be a lot of pressure on Abdullah Mason right now. This is not a man who's old, and we need to see him fight and unify right now. If he wants to take a couple of fights and build himself up properly, I've got no problem with him going out there and going find Cordina for a couple of times. So that's what I do want to see. I think Cordina is a perfect opportunity. I think it fell right into his lap. And I actually am excited for that fight. I think it's a good stepping stone for Abdullah Mason. Get a title defense down. And then by mid to late 2026, we start looking at, is there a bigger fight to make at 135? Maybe do you consider unification? Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Tank Davis belt, but a lot of things in line right there. So that's what I want to say about him. And then Ernesto Mercado, Antonio Moran. That fight was incredible. Tito is a phenomenal fighter. 6-round KO. This is a man who I think should be getting a title eliminator in early 2026. Absolutely phenomenal performance. I love watching him. I think he's phenomenal. Skye Nicolson, she returned and she beat Luna by unanimous decision. Pretty clear decision there. 98-92 on two of them, 97-93 on the other one. She's now the WBC interim super bantamweight title holder. I don't think that was a competitive fight. I think she's going to become world champion at super bantamweight. There's that. And then Cheavon Clarke. He also made his return against Anthony Holloway, and that was a 4th round stoppage. Now, it appears that Holloway's doing okay. If anybody did watch that fight, obviously thoughts and prayers with him. It was very concerning. Had to get stretched out. Not what you ever want to see in a boxing ring. And that's why I really want to bring this up because Clarke, he looked good, did his job. But obviously it appears from everything I'm hearing online that Holloway is going to be okay. But still, very concerning sights there that we did see happen on that undercard. I'm going to go back to the comment section real quick. Here we're going to actually put the comment up on the screen for this one real quick. Let's get to it. So this is Ryan from Boxing Talk up north. He brought this point up right here. Yeah, now we know why my guy Pacheco stayed far away from him, Billy. I agree. And I thought going back, I actually said this a few times, but when we talk about that matchup, I think they were discussing it, what was it, back maybe June or July-ish time or whatever it was about possibly going with him, Billy. Eddie Hearn was not going to make that fight. I know the way they curved it in the social media PR business was, hey, we're just not going to go this fight. We're going to go a different route, whatever it was. And Billy would have absolutely annihilated Pacheco. And I think he still would today. I think there is a gap between, those top guys at 168 and Pacheco. And once again, I want to clarify this always. I'm not ever saying Pacheco won't reach that point. I just don't think it's right now. He is young. I don't think he's ready for that moment at this point in time. I just think that he's got a lot of work to do. He is very solid. He's got talent, but it is a lot of potential right now. Not saying he can't reach that potential, but at this moment in time, the gap in terms of where he's actually at today with his age and his future, it's not the brightest in the world. I'm just going to be very clear. I think when you talk about, once again, the list off the top of my head, Martinez and Billy, you talk about Edgar Berlanga, sorry, not Edgar Berlanga, sorry, Hamzah Sheeraz, all the different guys, though Caleb Plant, even Charlo, all these guys, I just think there's a gap between them right now. That's why I think if you're going to go with the top 10 guy, Munguia does make the most sense. So we'll see what happens right there. Also, let's see both other comment up. Boy means, yes, sir. I do agree with that. He is very mediocre. And I think right now at this point in time, he is. And I think right now we're just looking at him. He's very young, but at the same time, he's got to develop. He's got to get to a place where he's ready to actually fight those top guys. And I don't think that Hamzah Sheeraz fight that the ring wants to make is a good idea. And I'll be honest, knowing Turki Al-Sheikh, we all know who he loves. He loves Hamzah Sheeraz big time. I think we all know why we put the connection points right there. But Hamzah Sheeraz is not going to be the type of guy that should be fighting Diego Pacheco right now. Because if that fight happens, it's going to be over within 5 or 6 rounds, in my opinion. I just don't think it's competitive. I think it's going to be set up, and it's going to be a very nasty performance for Diego Pacheco. So hopefully they do the Jaime Munguia route. I think that's the right option. Put him out in LA. That's the fight I would like to see them make right there. All right, let's get back to the other cards that we had going down right here. Actually, I'm going to go right to this one. Actually, I see the comment coming in once more. Let's pull this one up. Zuffa Boxing debut is in the Apex Arena. Why don't they go to the small markets like Indianapolis, Kansas, Milwaukee, where the big fights don't go there? Revive American boxing. I like that idea. Wow. I really actually like this idea right here. I didn't actually think about that. So I will say the very first part, and I'm just going to make this clear for the first one. I'm not surprised that the first one's going to be at the Apex. What they're going to do is with the Paramount deal going to play, they're on the debut UFC events going to be in Las Vegas. So all they're going to do is just make it locationally okay for Dana White to be able to do both. I don't think that's going to be something we have to worry about in the future. But for this first event, because the Paramount $7 billion deal goes into effect in January 24th, they're going to do that first card the day before at the Apex. I don't think there's going to be anyone even relatively of decent notice or name on that card, but I think that's what we're going to see for the very first one. It makes sense why they're doing that. But going forward, though, I do like this idea. And I actually was on a show a little bit earlier tonight, and I kind of broke this part down. I'm excited to see what Dana White does do. I know there's a lot of hate, but I don't think we have to be concerned that Dana White's going to take over boxing today, or even in 6 months or a year. It's going to have to be a thing where he grows it and develops it. And so I think the way he does that is he is great at marketing. I think he's going to have to do a lot of ideas. And what you just said right there is very interesting. Going to places like Kansas, Milwaukee, Indianapolis, all the different places, especially if you're going with these young prospects, I think that actually would be a huge idea. I've actually never thought of that before, but I do love that idea because American boxing at large is dying right now. And I think we look at it, you have these massive fights go down. And I always will point to this. When we have fights, people are going to probably hate me for saying this, but the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, even a real fight, obviously like Canelo and Bud Crawford, when there's these big, massive fights that are going on Netflix or whatever it is, we see that the audience all of a sudden comes together. Social media is vibing, is trending, all these different things happen. It's just that nobody else can access or really care about watching these fights. There's just this disconnect. And I think that idea right there actually is a phenomenal idea. I've never actually thought about that. So huge point right there. I love that actually idea of boy memes. And so I think actually I wouldn't be shocked by that. I mean, if Dana White wants to do that, he does move all around the country for UFC events, especially when you talk about non-numbered cards. So that actually could be something he does do, and I wouldn't be against that. I think that would be huge. Throwing it in all the different cities right there would be actually huge for boxing. It's a great idea. I actually love that idea right there. So we'll get back to the comments here a little bit later, but I want to go into another recap, and it's the cruiserweight fight. All right, so Badou Jack won the first fight. I never thought he won the fight. And in fact, the reason they had this rematch is because a lot of people didn't think they won the fight. I think it was a very controversial win, but they do the rematch. Noel Mikaelian, obviously, he gets his rematch. He gets his get back against Badou Jack. Won this one very decisively. He's now the WBC world champion. His scorecards read this 115, 111, 116, 110, 116, 110, the other one. And so Badou Jack was the oldest or second oldest world champion behind Erislandy Lara. It was just by a couple of months. So pretty much the oldest one in the world. But I thought it was a fine performance. I thought I was good. But let me just be very clear. When we talk about the cruiserweight division, Noel Mikaelian is now a world champion. He rightfully won that fight, but the cruiserweight division has a massive gap in talent. We know Jai Patai is number one. Zurdo Ramirez is number two. And obviously, David Benavidez is in this influx. I don't know if he's actually a cruiserweight yet. He's obviously going to fight Zurdo. Could become a unified world champion. Could go back down to 175. I don't know what he's going to do yet. But cruiserweight's in a problem right now. And all I can say is this. If you are Noel Mikaelian, please go make the unification fight happen with Jai Patai. I do not want the trilogy. Badou Jack sounded like he wanted to retire. I think if he wants to, let him move on, retire. Please do not force the trilogy, Don King. I swear, we do not need a trilogy. The cruiserweight division needs to start moving. And so if you are Don King, I think the only person holding up a Mikaelian and Jai Patai unification fight is the man, the myth, the legend, Don King. And so if I am Don King and you are trying to make this fight happen, I think it's actually going to have to involve Turki Al-Sheikh getting involved to make this fight and push it over the finish line. But Jai Patai and his team need to do whatever it takes to make sure they get this unification fight happen. Because Jai Patai is absolutely going to obliterate Noel Mikaelian. It's not even a competitive fight. But Jai Patai wants to become undisputed. If you have two belts, somebody's going to have two belts, whether it be David Benavidez or Zurdo when they fight on Cinco de Mayo weekend. That obviously sets up for the back end of 2026 for undisputed. I don't know if it ends up coming to fruition, but you could either get Jai Patai, who I think would beat Noel Mikaelian, versus Zurdo or David Benavidez. And if you put those two guys together, ending 2026, we now have an undisputed cruiserweight world champion, and that's Jai Patai's dream. So if you are Jai Patai's team, if you need to get Turki Al-Sheikh involved or whoever involved, get this fight done. It is on the table. The timeline works out perfectly. They both fought within a week or two of each other. Make this fight happen in 2026, early 2026. Why not make it there? I think Noel Mikaelian and Jai Patai need to happen. Now, if it doesn't happen, then Jai Patai is screwed. I don't know where Jai goes from there. There's not really a route to becoming undisputed if he can't get this fight with Noel Mikaelian done. So hopefully we don't see a trilogy. I don't think anybody wants to see that trilogy, but that's the situation at hand. I'm glad Mikaelian got his get back, and he is now the WBC world champion. Let's rewind now back over into what went down on Friday, a heavyweight fight going down in Dubai. The WBA regular heavyweight championship was on the line in this fight. Murat Gassiev, he defeated Kubrat Pulev, the 6th round KO. So let's revisit this fight. Very interesting. The very first few rounds, Kubrat Pulev, the 44-year-old man, he was winning this fight. And that was baffling to myself. That was a situation where I look back on, I was like, okay, Gassiev is about 10 years younger than this man, 11 years younger than this man, and he's not looking very good. But all of a sudden, he got dropped. And that's kind of what I've expected to see happen because, listen, when you're talking about being 44 years of age, now, obviously, George Foreman did it. Yes, I know he did it heavyweight, but that's very difficult. As he's an anomaly, very few guys are going to be able to do that. And eventually, it's going to get caught up to him. And I think Gassiev, he had a performance. Maybe you could even say that was his game plan was to purposely, get through a few rounds, get him tied out, and then go for the kill. I don't know what his game plan was. It worked out anyway. 6-round KO. It was solid. So, what's the fight I want to see next? Well, he doesn't really have an option. His regular defense must be against Moses Itauma next. And I think that's perfect for Moses Itauma. He was supposed to fight on the 13th. Obviously, that Queensberry card got axed for a few different reasons. They just could not make a fight happen for Chisora or Moses Itauma. But push comes to shove. This fight's now locked in. And Itauma and Gassiev will be fighting each other sometime in 2026. I don't think it'll be too late into the year. I could see it happening February or March. But yes, great fight right there for Itauma. I think Itauma wins that fight. Obviously, it's a step-up fight for him, but I would like to see this fight happen in the future. All for it. It actually would be a very intriguing fight, in my opinion. Let's move forward now into other fights that happened on that Dubai card. You had Maxie Hughes. He was defeated by a majority decision by Vadim Musaev. And then middleweight Nico Ali Walsh. He obviously won his fight by unanimous decision. And then also you had super lightweight fight between Ruben Nestor and Kari Argaba. That fight went to unanimous decision in favor of Ruben. And then a shocking one. Vadim Musaev, he defeated Tulani and Benge by a 3rd round KO. That was shocking myself. I thought Tulani was going to win that fight. I thought he's looked good in the future. Obviously, he was the champion heading into that fight. Got stunned in the very beginning of that fight, and it just was a matter of time until he finished him off. So, interesting performance there, but that is the Dubai card that went down right there. I'm going to go back to the comments real quick before we wrap up with the fight recap from this weekend. Let's get right to it. There was a decent fight I went to in Chicago. Duarte Sims Jr. Chicago hadn't had a big fight since Usyk's debut in 2019. The crowd shut up in a packed arena. I actually just was discussing this with a fellow Chicago native on the live or the show. It's actually going to be released a couple of days. I said a little bit ago. I agree with that. Chicago for sure needs more fights. I don't know why we've gone away from that. Being that it was 6 years without Chicago having a massive event is baffling to myself. Now, obviously, do you want to have a massive boxing fight in the middle of the winter right now in Chicago? Probably not. But when you're talking, late spring, summer, early fall time, there's no reason there's not more fights going down in Chicago. It made no sense to me that we had that big of a gap. And so, yes, more fights need to come out here, and they should be done in Chicago. I don't really know why there's such a big gap. It's a massive city. You have some fighters that come out of Chicago. I don't know why it was that big of a gap, but yes, there needs to be more Chicago fights. I agree with that 100%. Pulev was boxing, but yes, I've got him. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was saying. Obviously, he fought great in the beginning portions, and then he got caught, and night's over for himself. Ball Figueroa is a great fight by Queensbury. I agree with that then. I want to see Ball unify, though. I see Ryan said that as well. Yes, sir. I 100% agree with this one right here. And I had a whole segment on this on my last show. I honestly am a little bit baffled by doing this. I think Nick Ball is going to destroy Figueroa. Now, Brand, obviously, he didn't look good against Stephen Colby Fulton. He didn't look good in his last fight. He is solid, but I think Nick Ball is going to have his way with him. And here's the thing about Nick Ball. He is one of the most entertaining fighters to watch in boxing. He is. I absolutely love watching Nick Ball. The problem is this man is not unifying. I think the fight I want to see, and I brought this up on, and I actually have a post about it coming out in a couple of days. I really do want to see Nick Ball fight the winner of SchuZ and Castro, and primarily I'd say SchuZ, because I think SchuZ beats Castro on January 31st. That's the fight I want to see. SchuZ's been calling out Nick Ball for a very long time now. I think that's the fight I would love to see. If you are SchuZ, go right for the unification. I think Nick Ball would probably be favored in that fight right there, but the point being is this. 126 is just stagnant. Nick Ball keeps bringing guys up from 122. Now, Figueroa is obviously at 126, but none of these are big fights. Obviously, Angelo Leo is a new world champion. Rafael Espinoza, he has obviously not been unifying for some reason. And then obviously you have Kubrat Fulton just vacated that belt, which is why you have SchuZ and Castro fight on January 31st. I want to see some guys unify. I think 2026 needs to be the year we start seeing unifications happening. Nick Ball can fight Figueroa in February, but when we start moving forward into later in the year, by summertime, someone's got to unify. If that's Espinoza, if that's Leo, if that's going to be whoever wins the Castro and SchuZ or Nick Ball fight, people need to start unifying because 126 needs some juice happening, and they're not doing it right now. All right, let's get back to the final. This quick little recap of other fights that did go down this past weekend. Now, Cletus Selden, he was supposed to go out there and fight, but he tested positive for PEDs. He was removed from the fight card, and his WBA world title fight against Kevin Brown, his place was then taken by Amos Kowart in that fight right there. So disappointing there. Once again, though, it's boxing. How many times this year have we had PEDs screw things over? I honestly don't even know. It's many, way too many in my opinion, and we have to get to a point where this stuff has to start being held accountable. I'm sick and tired of almost every show I'm on top of this PED stuff, but yes, another one did happen this weekend. Edwin De Los Santos returned for the first time in multiple years with a first-round KO victory. Now, at first, my opinion was, okay, why are we having this fight when he just only lasted 30 seconds? He was obviously fighting a trash can in that fight, but end of the day, I'm just happy to see Edwin get back out there and get a win. This man's gone through so many health issues. He had the fight with Keyshawn lined up. Obviously, Keyshawn, everything happened with that whole situation. That all went downhill. But in the day, I'm happy for Edwin De Los Santos. This is a great position for himself. I'm glad he got a win under his belt. Hopefully in 2026, we get to see him more often. Then Tellez, he returned and bounced back from his defeat to Abbas Barao earlier this year at the round 5 KO over Kevin Castaneda in Orlando. And then Jose Salas, he stops Landili Exito in round 7 to win the vacant IBF bantamweight title. So you have another world champion right then and there. So that's the fight recap that I have for what went down this past weekend. Now let's head into a fight preview. So I'm going to have 2 fight previews this week because we have a weird, like I said in the beginning of the show, multiple things are going down on Wednesday this week. I don't know why we're doing it Wednesday, but we are doing it on Wednesday. And then on Thursday's show, I'm going to give you guys a fight preview of the Jake Paul fights and all that stuff going down there. So let's start off with the Japan card. The main event going down in Japan on Wednesday, Kazuki Takami, he's fighting Rene Santiago for the junior flyweight WBA and WBO titles. Takami is 9-0 with 8 KOs. The young man, who is 24 years of age, 5'4", 65-inch reach, and 89% KO ratio, while Rene Santiago is 12-3 with 9 KOs. Orthodox fighter, 5'3", 64-inch reach, 28 years of age, is 69% KO ratio. Takami is, as I said, a young rising Japanese star. He's an explosive puncher, high KO ratio, and he just recently captured the WBA junior flyweight title. While Santiago, he holds the WBO belt. So this will be a unification fight. And who do I have winning? I think Takami is going to win. If you have not watched this man fight, you will be impressed by him. Japan is on the top of his game when we talk about boxing right now. So many star fighters have coming out of Japan. Obviously, we know headlining Junto and Inoue, Taraji, all those guys. But it's not just the current guys that's up and coming. They've got a lot of future guys in the future in the rings working their way up. This man is one of them. I think his explosiveness is somebody to make sure you go out there and watch. I think he's going to be a unified world champion here in, what are we looking at now? About 40-ish hours. So make sure to watch him. I think it's going to be a great fight. I think he's going to have a late KO stoppage. Santiago's toughness will make it a very competitive and fun fight. But I just think Takami is a better fighter, and I think it's going to help him get that win there. Seiya Satsumi versus Nonito Donaire, bantamweight WBA interim fight right here. For Satsumi's 10-0 in 2 draws, 7 KOs, orthodox fighter standing at 5'6", 67-inch reach, 28 years of age with a 58% KO ratio. While Nonito Donaire, obviously we all know him, 42-8 in his career, 28 KOs, and he's orthodox fighter standing at 5'7", 68-inch reach, 43 years of age, and 60% KO ratio. So for Satsumi, this is a man who he's undefeated Japanese contender, sharp boxing puncher, but we have to remember for this man, he's coming off of a lot of injuries. He obviously was formerly a world champion. He was the champion recently because of the eye injury. He's now apparently healthy. He's going right into the ring with the Filipino Flash, one of the most experienced, oldest fighters in all boxing right now, a future Hall of Famer, multi-time world champion across multiple divisions. He's still dangerous. Even with his age, he's still dangerous. But my biggest thing is, what is Satsumi going to look like in the ring on Wednesday? Is this a man that's going to have a lot of ring rust? Now, Nonito Donaire just fought a little bit ago. The ring rust is not going to be there. The age aspect will be there. But for Satsumi, if he is healthy and 100%, I do have this man winning this fight. If he has a lot of ring rust and he's not looking 100%, then Nonito Donaire would be able to be the WBA interim champion. And so we'll see what happens right there. I'm going to go with Satsumi winning this fight. I think he is more talented. I think he's better in terms of his youth and experience right there. But as I said, if he's not 100%, that eye is not all the way healthy, then Nonito Donaire, I think, will win this fight. Other one, Anthony Oskagwa. He obviously fought a little bit ago back on the Canelo Bud Crawford undercard when he made his debut or return back home to America to fight. He is now going to be fighting Taku Kawaha, flyweight WBO title on the line. Anthony Oskagwa is 8-1 with 6 KOs, orthodox 5'4", 65-inch reach, 26 years of age with a 75% KO ratio, while his opponent is 13-1 with 8 KOs, orthodox fighter, standing at 5'4", 64-inch reach, 30 years of age, and 62% KO ratio. This is going to be a situation where I think Oskagwa wins this fight with ease. He's going to win by KO. I think that his opponent is solid Japanese contender, sharp technician. Anthony Oskagwa was a really good fighter. And I think we've seen that when he's fought every single time in his career. This is going to be a man who's going to go out there, get another KO, and continue his reign as world champion. So I don't think it's too much I have to go into, but that's what I do have for that one. And then Seo Yuri Akui, he's making his return as well against Vincent Lacar. That fight's going to be going down that flyweight division there as well. Let's get into the Australian card now. Tim Tszyu is making his return to the ring against Anthony Velasquez. This is going to be a fight that I'm really looking forward to right here. When we talk about this man, Tim Tszyu, I will always go back to this. When he had the bad cut against Sebastian Fundora, I thought that they rushed him too quickly in the Bakhmut Musaev fight. It made no sense in my eyes. Why would you go rush him right into Bakhmut Musaev when you just went through a brutal fight? And so I thought they should have built him up the right way, got him healthy, and done fights like this one all the way back in time. I think it would have saved his entire career. They didn't. It is what it is. So here's what we're going to go with now. Tim Tszyu has an entirely new team around him, and he's going to fight Anthony Velasquez. I think this will be an easy win for Tim Tszyu. I really do. I don't think it's going to be competitive. I think Tim Tszyu is going to go out there, get his tune-up job, get him out of there with maximum of 6 rounds. I'd say more so closer to 3 or 4. And he's going to be getting a win back to his belt. And in 2026, you do another one of these tune-up fights. And then maybe you look at a Keith Thurman type of fight or something along those lines at that point in time. But we'll see what happens there. I think Tim Tszyu does win this fight. Another interesting one. Sam Goodman fights Tyler Blizzard. This is going to be interesting to see right here. Sam Goodman, obviously we know who he is. Tyler Blizzard is an underrated fighter. I like what he brings to the table. I do favor Sam Goodman in this fight, but it's a fight to keep an eye on nonetheless. So that's what's going to be going down in Australia. And then the Matchroom card going down in the UK on Wednesday. Giorgio Visioli fighting Joe Holworth. This is going to be a 10-round fight at the lightweight division. And then John Hedges fighting Ellis Zorro, 10-round fight, cruiserweight. Hedges' English title will be on the line in this one. So two really bright stars in the British boxing scene. I like both of them. Keep your eye on both of them. So they'll both be going down in the matchroom card. Taylor Bevan, another man who I am very high on as a young prospect up and coming. He will be on the card, as well as Emmanuel Buttigieg and also Adam McCaw. So lots of young prospects in the Matchroom Stable House will be fighting on this Wednesday card. Keep an eye on them. These are guys that are going to probably be another year or two out from, being legitimate contenders, but still, all of them are very good opponents to go see. And speaking of, if you guys have not seen my interview with Taylor Bevan or John Hedges, make sure to go check them out. They are on my YouTube channel. Great interview. You guys can go get to know them a little bit better as well. So that does conclude the fight recap and fight preview of all of those aspects. So now it's time to get into some boxing news. So if you guys do have any other comments or questions or topics for me to get into on today's show, make sure to go and let me know. Put them in the chat, and I'll make sure to address them as we go. Also, on top of that, if you guys are on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or X, make sure to smash that likes button, share, all that. I definitely appreciate you guys for doing that as well. So I'm going to make sure we have any other comments. It does not look so. So let's get right back to it, though. Boxing news. I have to start off with this one. Massive breaking news is a post from the Ring magazine. Sources have advised the Ring that a highly anticipated showdown between former heavyweight champions Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua will headline a Riyadh season mega event in 2026. Before that collision happens, the Ring has also learned that Fury and Joshua are slated to see action in separate fights as part of next year's Riyadh season. Okay. On top of that, Tyson Fury and Makhmudov are possible. That could be Tyson Fury's return. Aris Labendek, Makhmudov is an option for Tyson Fury's comeback fight, likely in April, before the Anthony Joshua showdown later this year. Matchroom has promotional options on Makhmudov after he defeated Dave Allen. So, I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on this. Why are we going to be in a position that all of a sudden we're going to go out there and do this fight before the fight? Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua has been the fight we've been waiting for a very, very long time. It needs to happen. I don't care what people want to say. Yes, it's well expired. Obviously, we wanted to go out there and see this fight 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. But I'd rather get the fight than never see the fight happen. That's the position we're at. And we have no other option on the table. And so for those complaining about this fight, I want to see Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua fight each other in this calendar year of 2026. It is still one of the biggest, maybe even the biggest fight to make in all boxing. It will sell at Wembley Stadium. I want to see the fight happen. Here's the problem I have, though. Why in God's green earth are we going to put ourselves in a position where we do the fight before the fight again? I get it. Both guys have been outside of the ring for a long time. You want to do tune-up fights. How about this? For this type of fight, when both guys are not really world champion caliber right now, this moment in time, we just make AJ and Fury happen. Why are both guys going to be headlining separate events on Riyadh season cards prior to the big fight going down later in the year? It makes no sense to me. We've seen this happen too many times in recent history where we do these fights before the main fight, and guess what? It all gets blotched. I don't want anything possibly hindering AJ and Fury from happening again. It's been too many years of this fight not getting made. Why are we going to risk it once again by having these guys fight subpar guys where possibly things go sideways? It makes no sense to me. If I were Turki Al-Sheikh and I'm the guys promoting these two fighters, I'm saying this. Who cares about the tune-up fight? Go get some good sparring in, or maybe just go, if you're Tyson Fury and you want to fight a bum that's just barely ranked inside the top 100, essentially what AJ is doing with Jake Paul, then go do that. But don't put any possible risk out there where you're going to hinder AJ and Fury happening in 2026. Because this is the last year that fight can really happen. It needs to happen in 2026. And I'm sick and tired of these fight before the fight. We don't need it for this. Sometimes maybe you do. In this situation, there is no need for a fight before the fight. So if I were these guys, make the fight happen. Don't do all this little making fights happen before the main one. Just go book it for Wembley. Fury AJ 2026. Let's not keep playing these games and risk possibly losing it because for one reason or another, we're going to put ourselves in a place where, guess what? They're going to fight and possibly things go sideways. I don't like that idea whatsoever. On the same moment, I will admit this. I think Turki Al-Sheikh, it was on the last Riyadh card, or no, it was actually Eubank and Ben where he talked about the facts of saying something along the lines. I don't have the direct quote on me right now, but essentially what was said by Turki Al-Sheikh was is going to be one of the greatest fights in boxing history. Well, I think when he announced this, and it took probably a lot of money to get Fury back out of retirement and make this fight happen, but I think Turki Al-Sheikh's mindset was this was going to generate a lot of buzz. And I think it will. I think we're still so long out from this fight actually happening that it's tough to generate that buzz right now. But I will admit, the buzz generated from that initial announcement by the ring, I don't think it made as much attention as I think they probably were anticipating. I thought when they first announced it, everybody's going to be talking about it. In hindsight, it didn't generate the buzz I thought it was going to hit. Now, as I said, it's probably because there's other fights in line. AJ's obviously fighting this weekend. A lot of factors. So I think we'll have to wait and see what happens when these guys do their stupid tune-up fights. But at the end of the day, I don't think it generated the buzz that Turki Al Sheikh was probably looking for and hoping for when he announced it. But let me know your guys' thoughts. Who do you guys think will win this fight if it does, in fact, go down in 2026? I will give you guys my thoughts right now. When we look at these two men, I'm actually intrigued by this matchup for many reasons. For Anthony Joshua, I go back to it, and I know people probably hate on me for saying what I'm going to say, but Anthony Joshua, when you're in the heavyweight division and you get buzzed in the very beginning of a fight, it throws off everything. He was clipped by Daniel Dubois 9-0 for him. Now, even though he was getting clipped and was obviously out of it, he still managed to go and hurt or stun, at least you could say, Daniel Dubois right before he got knocked out. So for AJ, I always will say, I don't think it was as bad of a fight when you look at it from that standpoint against Dubois. Some people make it out to be. If you ignore the hate you have for AJ, I think he's still good. Now, we'll have to see what he looks like against AJ, against Jake Paul, and then this tune-up fight, whatever it is. But I'm intrigued to see what he looks like with Usyk's team, because we always know AJ has power, but he lacks a lot of fundamentals. So we'll see what he looks like. And then for Fury, obviously he's got the full package, but he's older. And Fury obviously just went through a lot of brutal fights in his career now, and he's been outside of the ring for a long time again. So if I were to make my prediction, in the prime ages, Fury obviously wins this fight. At this moment in time, I will still give the edge to Tyson Fury, but I am very intrigued to see what AJ looks like. So let me know your guys' thoughts. Obviously, I can't make a firm prediction until I see what these guys look like in their fights, but let me know your guys' thoughts. Who do you guys see winning this fight between AJ and Tyson Fury if it does in fact go down in 2026? All right. Another massive fight, which is what's crazy. We have so many big fights already being outlined for 2026. Here's another one. Canelo Alvarez will officially skip his May fight and is going to target Terrence Bud Crawford rematch. Eddie Reynoso came out and said this. Canelo's trainer, if you don't know who Eddie Reynoso is, he has confirmed that the Mexican, let me see my notes cut off right there. Well, Mexican will not be fighting in May. His return is planned for September with a rematch against Terrence Crawford targeted. All right. This is interesting. I'll give my thoughts. I don't really care for the rematch, but at this moment in time, I think you have to make it happen. If you are Canelo Alvarez, you should have one fight on your mind right now, and that is Terrence Bud Crawford. Now, personally, I do think Terrence Bud Crawford wins that rematch even easier than did the first time around. In fact, I think he's going to actually put on a clinic against Canelo Alvarez. But if you're Canelo, there's not really another fight out there where you can generate anywhere near the money and legacy than going for Terrence Bud Crawford. And if you're Canelo, you might even go give away some of that money for Terrence Bud Crawford to go make this fight happen. But let me make this very clear. If you are Terrence Bud Crawford, go get that payday. Canelo wants this rematch. You might even say he needs this rematch. If you are Terrence Bud Crawford, go get that payday. You were paid nicely in the first fight, but you are now the champ. You're now the king. You go demand that massive payday. And if you don't get that payday, there's no reason you have to entertain the Canelo Alvarez fight. Now, I will say this. Now that Janibek situation happened and you no longer have the Janibek Anderson Laura unification fight that went down, the 160 move doesn't make a lot more sense for Bud because there's not a lot of money there. The champions are diversified, and you're soon to have 4 champions again. And then at 175, not a lot of people. 168, there's no big names. So Terrence Bud Crawford's in a unique position. But if you're Bud, demand a big payday from Canelo Alvarez and go get that rematch and put the work in. And if you're Canelo Alvarez, I'm excited to see what he looks like. I think he wants this rematch. I think he believes he could possibly win it. I don't think he can, but he believes it. Let's see it. Make it a rematch happen around August, September. Run it back. I think it's a perfect fight to make for both guys. All right. I want to bring a question to you guys. And it kind of comes off the piggyback of when I discussed the Terrence Bud Crawford situation, giving the WBC. But I believe it is now time that, as all boxing fans, we unanimously decide to look at the Ring Magazine belt as the only main belt. What do I mean by that? You have 4 other sanctioning bodies. Both those belts have world champions. The Ring Magazine belt is already viewed as, the top guy in the weight class. But the position we've now put ourselves in is this controversy. Every single one of these 4 belts have controversy. The WBC is obviously leading the charge as of late, but all 4 of them have issues, and they have politics involved. They have weird things going down. The mandatories, stripping the guys, so on and so forth. Lots of controversy and issues I don't really like by the WBC and IBO and all these different weight classes. What I think we need to see have happen is we get to a place where all four of the sanctioning bodies still exist. Not saying we get rid of them. No, they're not going to go anywhere. But we view all four of them almost as if they are a stepping stone to what universally is now viewed as the primary belt, where you are actually the world champion, the guy, when you have that ring belt. That's what I think needs to happen. And I know a lot of people do view it that already, but I think it's time for us to universally view it that way. Where, yes, the green WBC belt and all these different belts, they look great, they're cool, they're fun, but these are all just stepping stones. For really who the king is the man that holds that Ring Magazine belt. I think we're being pushed closer and closer to that point. And when you have four belts, it always makes the world championship debate very controversial. Who is the world champion? You have four different guys in a lot of weight classes. And then on top of that, you have regulars, you have interims, you have all these different random belts all over the place. If we get to a place now where we start to acknowledge that we have one main belt, that's the guy at this weight class. That man that holds that Ring Magazine belt is the guy. He is the king of this weight class. He is the best guy. He is the true world champion. I think that makes it a lot healthier for boxing. And on top of that, have you ever tried to explain to a friend that does not know boxing what and who the world champion is? If you ever have, it's very, very difficult. In a lot of sports, let's look at basketball, for example, the NBA. Who's the best team in the NBA? Well, the team that wins the world championship or the championship, that being Oklahoma City Thunder. NFL, the very same thing at the time, Philadelphia Eagles, and soon to be dethroned by somebody else, right? In boxing, you have all these different weight classes, which is difficult in and of itself, but then you say, well, okay, we have these weight classes, 168, 175, and so on and so forth, and guess what? We have four world champions. We also have interim champions, and we have regular champions, and we have all these different champions, and champion in recess, and all these things. How do you explain this to a lot of people? It makes no sense in the sport of boxing, and I do believe that we've reached a point now where we really do need to get to an aspect where we recognize one guy is the guy in every weight class. That's going to be much more healthier for the sport. It's going to put us in a much better position, and I think on top of that, it helps grow the sport. Because for a lot of these guys, it's hard to track all these world champions. If you have that guy, a lot bigger name and image and attention goes to that man because he is the guy, as opposed to having four of them. So I think we've reached a point where it's time that the Ring Magazine belts reign superior and supreme to everything else in boxing universally. Because when we reach that standpoint, it's going to be for the greater good of the sport of boxing. Let's go out Teofimo Lopez real quick. I just want to propose hypothetical. Now, I will say this. I do predict that Shakur Stevenson will beat Teofimo Lopez when they fight on January 31st. But let's ignore that real quick. Let's say that Teofimo Lopez defeats Shakur Stevenson on January 31st. All of a sudden, we're going to look at Teofimo Lopez as a man who I do believe emerges as a top 10 pound per pound without a shadow of a doubt, and maybe even close to the top 5. Teofimo Lopez, if he beats Shakur Stevenson and then possibly moves up to fight Devin Haney, who he is rumored to do so, he would have a phenomenal year in 2026 that would propel him to be one of the best fighters in all boxing. Here's the thing about Teofimo Lopez. He is one of the rare guys in boxing that always wants to rise to the occasion. When he's fighting somebody that is a legitimate threat in his weight class or a legitimate challenger, he rises to the occasion and performs at a very high level. And if we see Teofimo Lopez do that against Shakur Stevenson and possibly move to fight Devin Haney, and he beats both those guys, it's going to be hard for us not to look at Teofimo Lopez as a top 5 pound per pound fighter at the conclusion of 2026. This is what Teofimo Lopez continues to claim. This is what this man wants to do. And I think if he can pull that off, we're looking at Teo as being a legitimate guy who we can no longer disrespect. Yeah, he runs his mouth big time, but if Teo beats Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney in 2026, we are talking about a man who would have one of the better resumes out of all active boxers in boxing today. So we'll see what happens there. Another one I want to bring up here is going back to the commissioning bodies is the WBC. They will be they're evaluating possibly bringing back same-day weigh-ins. For the greater good of boxing, it is time that we bring back same-day weigh-ins. I get it. This weigh-in and weight bully stuff has become a legitimate skill set in boxing. It has been. There's countless boxers out there that use weight bullying as a strategy inside the ring, and it helps them. But is it for the better health of these guys? Is draining yourself of 15, 20, 30, 40 pounds in some cases really for the best interest of the guys? And does it really make for better fights inside the ring? To that answer, I would say no. Many doctors will tell you that this weight cutting, this extreme weight cutting that's going down in combat sports today is more dangerous than the fights themselves. And if you are boxers, why are we going to keep partaking in this? Now, if you are a boxer, you're going to use every advantage possible inside that ring. So I'm not going to fault a single boxer, never have, never will. But that's why it comes down to the organizing bodies. It is time that all organizing bodies put in infrastructure that mandate same-day weigh-ins. Let's stop all this unnecessary weight cutting. We don't need extreme weight cutting. Be the best man at your actual weight, and let's move on with that. Eliminate these massive risks that these guys are putting themselves through by cutting excessive amounts of weight. It's not healthy for them. It hurts fights a lot of time. It makes countless fights get canceled or postponed. And guess what? It's bad for guys as well. Let's get all the guys at their peak best self inside the ring at the actual weight. And guess what? That's going to make for better fights and better health of all the fighters, both in the present and in the future. So that's my opinion. I think WBC would be wise to do that, and I actually would love to see that actually happen. The WBC has now canceled the BUATSI-WHITTAKER order. The WBC has chosen to resign their order for Joshua Buatsi, Ben Whittaker final eliminator. Buatsi and Whittaker retain the number 2 and 3 rankings. Whittaker is expected to make his U.S. debut in his next fight in March. Not shocking at all. I think this is what we actually all kind of thought was going to happen. Ben Whittaker and Buatsi was never a fight that's going to happen right now. Eddie Hearn's got a very strong strategy in place for Ben Whittaker to slowly kind of develop this man up to where he needs to be at in the future. So not shocked by this. I do think we will see that fight one day, but right now it never made much sense. So I'm glad they actually made this decision. And let that fight kind of marinate. I think we're going to see Buatsi possibly fight Anthony Yard or something along those lines, or Lyndon Arthur maybe. We'll see what happens. But that's something we could see unfold there. But let's just see this fight kind of marinate for a little bit. It's not ready yet. If you guys want to watch Subriel Matias and Dalton Smith, which is going to be a solid fight, you have to pay $54.99 to watch that fight. Yeah, just going to leave that there. I have no idea why they're charging that much. Absolutely outlandish. There's no reason Matias versus Dalton Smith is $54.99. But that's the pay-per-view era that we've got currently going on in boxing. So I'll leave that right there. All right, let's get to another aspect. Dana White, Nick Khan, and Terrence Crawford were at this point in time headed to Texas for the U.S. Nationals to try to purchase the rights to U.S. boxing national tournaments. Now, this hasn't all been officially confirmed. This was something that Sean Zeddell talked about and others brought up. But let me make this clear. I know Sean does not like Dana White whatsoever. He likes to attack him. And I'll be honest, are there things that rightfully so Dana White can be attacked on? Sure. I'm not going to say this man's perfect. He's not. He makes plenty of mistakes, and he's going to make mistakes in boxing. However, what I will say is this. When he wants to continue, and I'm talking about Sean Zeddell, when you constantly want to, go after the Turki Al-Sheikh stuff, I think it's kind of foolish. I get where he's coming from, the 9/11 stuff. I get it. It makes sense. But you do have to remember this. And if we're talking politics, yes, this court case is currently going on in the United States for this. But the people that were in place in Saudi Arabia when 9/11 happened, they are all either exiled, dead, or in prison. If you didn't know this, look it up. A coup happened in 2015 where MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, took over Saudi Arabia in a coup where he now reigned. Turki Al-Sheikh became pretty much his right-hand man, and they've now changed countless things, whether that be laws in terms of giving more freedom, especially to women in Saudi Arabia, and countless other things. They've been great for the country. Completely changed everything. Changed their alliances in terms of all this. And I know I'm getting political with you guys, but just because of that backstory. The Saudi Arabia of today is not the same Saudi Arabia as 9/11. And so when Sean Zeddell always wants to go back and boast and harp on, what Saudi Arabia has done, I think it's a little bit foolish. It's not the same country at all, and that's just a fact. So let's throw that out the window. Let's look at what's actually best for boxing. If you're not just going to harp on the fact of saying, guess what? These guys are going to go out there and fight, and I don't want, Turki Al-Sheikh behind it. Let's look at what's good for boxing. Turki Al-Sheikh makes big fights happen. He gives great paydays to a lot of different guys. And on top of that, if he takes over the national boxing, USA boxing scene, I think that'd be huge. I get a lot of people are upset with that. But amateur boxing is very undervalued. It gets no attention today, is rarely talked about. And I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with other sports. If you guys talk about, especially basketball, football, and baseball in America, those sports have high school rankings. They have media attention. A lot of guys have hundreds of thousands, some of them even millions of followers. They're earning NIL contracts. All these things are happening. And guess what? That is affecting boxing. Why? Because there's a lot more money in these other sports than there are in boxing. And so when you talk about amateur boxing scene, it is not growing. It is not in a good place. It needs to be revamped. It needs to be changed. And if you're not going to do it, if nobody else is going to do it, why are we going to be upset Dana White for doing it? Amateur boxing scene has been a mess now for 5 or 10, 15 years. They've had their time. Eddie Hearn, Oscar De La Hoya, anybody. They've all had their opportunity to go out there and do this. But Dana White gets into boxing, he sees a vision, and he's going to go out there and execute. And that's why I always appreciate about this man. He is a very hardworking dude that gets the job done. So I know a lot of people want to bash all this stuff about the amateur boxing ranks, but guess what? At the end of the day, if nobody else is going to do it, why are we going to fault Dana White for doing it? At least he's trying. At least he's got a game plan. He's actually going to go execute it. Everybody else had their time to do it. Now Dana White just gets right into boxing, goes right for it. I'm not going to shoot the guy for it. He's fine. Let him do it. I really don't know why there's such a big deal about this right now, because everybody else had the chances. Everybody else failed to do it. Richardson Hitchens versus Jermaine Ortiz will be on the undercard of the Shakur Stevenson Teofimo Lopez on January 31st. This fight originally was going to happen, then it was off, and now I guess it's back on. So we'll see what happens. I think it's a solid fight. Not against it. I actually like this out of all the options. It makes a lot of sense. So yes, Hitchens, Ortiz, good fight right there. Expect that on the undercard, Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez. Shakur made an interesting quote. He has stated that he believes he will be the pound-for-pound #1 fighter within 2 years. I don't think he's wrong. In 2-year time, Alexander Usyk, Terence Crawford both likely going to be retired, and possibly even Noel Mikaelian. And when we talk about Shakur Stevenson, this is a man who's calling out endless big-name fighters. It is clear that Shakur Stevenson does not fear anybody, and he believes he can beat everybody that he steps foot in the ring with. I think when you talk about 135, he beats everybody there. You look at 140, I think he beats everybody there. Even jumping up to 147, the biggest threat is Devin Haney, and you could make a case that Shakur Stevenson even wins that fight. And so is it unrealistic that within 2 years, Shakur is the #1 person in the pound-pound rankings? No, it's not unrealistic. And even if it was unrealistic, Shakur having that confidence is something that actually is a good thing. I like the way Shakur's talking. If you want to be the face of boxing, you need to learn how to talk a big talk and back it up. And we've seen him start to do that now. And so we'll see what happens in this TO. I think Shakur wins that fight. But this is the start to a potential run for Shakur, jumping all the way from where he's currently on the top 10 for pound-pound list up to #1. And I think when he says that he believes he will be #1 on the pound-pound list within 2 years, I don't think he's that crazy for saying that. There's a legitimate chance that within 2 years, Shakur is #1 pound-for-pound list. Between guys retiring and who he's looking to fight, Shakur could very well work his way up into those rankings right there. Devin Haney says he would like to fight Gervonta Tank Davis in 2026. This is according to Bill Haney. Devin Haney and Bill Haney have also discussed a Lewis Crocker fight that is in early negotiations for a unification fight in the UK. All right, that would mean the WBO and IBF titles would be in the line for that fight. Here's what I'm going to talk about in this situation. First and foremost, the Lewis Crocker fight, do not expect that to happen. Lewis Crocker is going to be making a return in Belfast for his first title defense. The odds of him going out there and fighting Devin Haney is slim to none. Why? Because guess what? Everybody in the world knows Devin Haney wins that fight. Lewis Crocker is not very good. I think he's an overrated world champion. That fight's not happening. Unless the Haneys pay this massive generational bag to Lewis Crocker, that's not happening. So scratch that off the list. I'd be shocked if that happens. Here's what I do see happening. Devin Haney possibly doing a rematch from Ryan Garcia, a Conor Benn fight, something along those lines. But Devin Haney calling out Gervonta Tank Davis is a very interesting call out. Because here's the deal. I think we all know the answer already. This fight's not going to happen. We're not going to see Gervonta Tank Davis and Devin Haney fight each other in 2026. Tank Davis wants no part of that fight. And I'll be honest with you, it doesn't make sense either. If you are Tank Davis, and I'm very harsh on this man, I'll say it a lot of the time, I'm always disappointed in Tank Davis. Tank Davis ducks a lot of guys. He does not make big fights happen. That being said, I'm not going to fault Tank Davis for not doing the Devin Haney fight. Devin Haney is now at 147. Tank Davis is now at 135. That is now 2 weight classes apart from each other. And on top of that, Devin Haney is a big 147-pounder who still is a weight bully to a certain extent. I'm not going to fault Tank Davis for not making this fight happen. Would I like to see it? Absolutely. Would the build-up process be legendary? No doubt about it. That being said, I will not fault Tank Davis for not taking the Devin Haney fight. I will fault him for not taking a lot of other fights, but I'm not going to fault the man for not taking the Devin Haney fight. And for Devin Haney to even suggest this fight, it's irrational. You know it's not going to happen. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Sure, it makes you get a lot of clicks on your name, but that fight was never going to happen, so there it is. Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez will no longer defend his WBA or WBO cruiserweight titles against Robin Safar on January 16th due to a hand injury sustained by Safar in his November fight. Social Teller Ring Magazine's Mike Coppinger, Ramirez is expected to fight David Benavidez still in May 2026. So, interesting. We thought this was going to be a tune-up fight for him, but I guess he's going to wait all the way up until May. If you're Zurdo Ramirez and you're going to be, close to a year outside of the ring, fighting David Benavidez, coming off a massive injury for yourself, that's not a good sign. If you are going to be Zurdo, I would have thought that tune-up fight was something you wanted. And so I hope Zurdo is wise here and they find somebody else to go get in the ring with and get an easy win, because you need to tune up to get ready for David Benavidez, because that's not going to be an easy fight whatsoever for yourself. Lawrence Okolie will take on Ebenezer Tetteh in a heavyweight clash on December 21st in Lagos, Nigeria. This fight was being talked about for quite some time. They couldn't find an opponent. Lawrence Okolie now has his man booked. Frank Warren has said that he is hoping to stage Fabio Wardley's first title defense of his WBO heavyweight championship at the end of April. Warren confirmed he'd also be open to making Wardley versus Derek Chisora. Really? I mean, let's be honest. If you are Frank Warren, why are we doing this to Derek Chisora? Listen, is Fabio Wardley and Chisora a fun fight that would sell great? No doubt about it. But Chisora is likely only going to fight one final time for his 50th career fight. Are you really going to have him be put in the ring with Fabio Wardley? Please don't do this. If Fabio Wardley and Chisora step foot in the ring together, Chisora is going to have a brutal way to end that fight. That 50th fight will be his final fight, and I just don't want to see that happen. If you're Chisora and you really need one more fight to get to 50, go do a fight against somebody somewhere else and just let that fight go on and sail off into the sunset. Going for a world championship would be one heck of a way to go out, but that's just a scary sight for yourself. I hope he does not end up doing. Let's go back to America. I got a couple more things before I wrap the show up. One of which is this. Floyd Schofield Sr. says that they will need at least $10 million now instead of 2.5 to fight Abdullah Mason, or they are not entertaining that fight. All right. Can we please stop ducking Abdullah Mason, Floyd Schofield? Why in the world are you going to come out here and say that you need $10 million to fight Abdullah Mason? Abdullah Mason is now the world champion. Abdullah Mason is the youngest world champion in all of boxing. He took advantage of his world championship shot. He did his job in that ring, and he became world champion. Floyd Schofield Jr. has not become world champion yet. He also didn't ever take his opportunity against Shakur Stevenson. So I propose this question to you, Floyd Schofield Sr. Why are we trying to recommend and say you want $10 million to fight Abdullah Mason? The 2.5 was already outlandish. Abdullah Mason is the A side in that fight. He's the world champion. I think he also, you could say, is the bigger name. Why in the world would you get $10 million to fight Abdullah Mason? That is foolish. By you saying that you want $10 million to fight Abdullah Mason is essentially you saying, I cannot fight Abdullah Mason unless we're going to get such a big payday that it's worth me taking this L. That's the way I read it. I don't read him saying I want $10 million from Abdullah Mason to make that fight happen as anything other than saying I need to duck Abdullah Mason unless I get a big payday. That's all I see in this. Because if you're Floyd Schofield, you should say, you know what? That man's the world champion. I want to go for those belts. And guess what? I'm going to earn my money. I'll go fight him, and I'm going to become world champion as two of the young best fighters in America right now, especially at 135. That's the way you should approach it. Going out there throwing around that you want $10 million to fight him is outlandish. It's stupid. Makes absolutely no sense. So all I can say is this. Make that fight happen. It's going to be a massive fight one day down the road. We need Abdullah Mason and Floyd Schofield to fight someday at some point in time. But if you're going to go out there and say you want $10 million, you might as well just come out there and say, I want to go out there and duck Abdullah Mason. Stupid, irrational comment to make. This question came up a little bit ago, and I actually want to hear you guys' thoughts on it. It was a debate, and it was when Bud Crawford decided to go a little bit crazy on X, was it now about a week or two ago? And Bud Crawford essentially was talking about how nobody could beat him. And then he gave his respect to Floyd Mayweather. But I want to propose this question to you. If Bud Crawford and Floyd Mayweather fought each other in the ring, who do you have winning? Let me know in the chat. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say there. But I thought about it. Nobody's better than Floyd Mayweather defensively. Could Bud Crawford and his pressure fighting style possibly impact Floyd? To be honest, if I were to make my prediction right now, I'd say it was a Floyd. And I think when you saw Bud eventually came around the corner, he said, you know what? I would give Floyd, he's still the best, he's the GOAT. I agree with that. I think when you look at that stylistically, could Bud beat Floyd? Sure. Bud Crawford, anything can happen in boxing, especially when you're talking about all-time greats like Bud Crawford and Floyd Mayweather. Anything could happen in that ring. But would Terrence Bud Crawford beat Floyd Mayweather? I would say probably not. If I were to put the odds on that fight, Floyd Mayweather wins that fight. Why? Floyd Mayweather obviously has his solid offensive ability as well, but beyond just offensively, Floyd Mayweather is the best defensive fighter, in my opinion, in the history of boxing. And Terrence Bud Crawford, he has great power. He's a pressure fighter. He has all those different abilities. But if Floyd Mayweather can neutralize all those aspects, which he is capable of doing, we've seen him against so many other great fighters, then I think Floyd Mayweather beats Terrence Bud Crawford. But make no mistake about this. If Floyd Mayweather and Bud Crawford did fight each other, don't rule Terrence Bud Crawford out of that fight, hypothetically. Both guys in their prime, Bud Crawford still is Bud Crawford. Anything can happen in boxing. When you take two all-time greats like that, there is no reason in this world that Bud Crawford could not go out there and defeat Floyd Mayweather in a fight. I would favor Floyd, but Bud Crawford surely still has a chance of beating Floyd Mayweather and pulling off that massive upset if they were to hypothetically fight each other. The last thing I want to go on to in tonight's show, and if you guys have any more comments or topics in the chat, make sure to leave it there. I'll make sure to address it, but is this. If you follow the UFC, two of the biggest stars, Ilia Topuria and Tom Aspinall, within the past 24 hours, have both announced that they are interested in fighting boxing. At some point in time, they want to make a jump and transition into boxing and start a little bit of a run in boxing. And all I will say is this. When we continue to see guys from the UFC desire to come into the boxing world at some point in their career and make a run at it, all I can say is this. Those guys realize that boxing is the best sport. And this is the fact. UFC is a sport that I do love and I always watch and support it. But at the end of the day, boxing is bigger than UFC. It's been around longer, has many more eyes on it, and globally, it is still the biggest sport out of the two of them. And I think that's very evident when you see countless UFC stars continue to want to work their way into the boxing scene. Obviously, the list is a very, very extensive list, but now you have Tom Aspinall, Ilia Topuria, two of the biggest stars, wanting to make that transition as well. And all I can say is this. When we have this big debate, is UFC or boxing bigger? I think we need to come back to the ground and say, you know what? Guess what we know? Boxing's still bigger. Boxing is still king. And UFC, while it is growing and rapidly growing, it is not bigger than boxing. And I don't think it ever will be. Because there's never going to be a day where UFC guys don't want to transition to boxing. There's more money, bigger name, more eyes. Pretty much everything you would want is in boxing. Now, is UFC harder than boxing? I think you could make a debatable case for that. But still, in terms of what's the biggest sport, the best sport, and the preferred sport, it will always be boxing. And I don't think UFC is ever going to catch up to them. While they are rapidly increasing, they're not going to jump up to where the boxing world is currently at today. That's what I've got for today's show. I don't see any more comments in the chat. I'm going to go back to the comments real quickly, see if we do have anything else. It appears that is it. So, with that being said, though, I appreciate each and every single one of you guys for tuning in to tonight's show. I hope you guys have a blessed rest of you guys Monday. If you guys are tuning in on Tuesday, have a great Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever the case may be. I will see you guys back live on Thursday. On Thursday's show, I'll be giving a recap of all the fights I previewed on today's show that's going down on Wednesday. Then a fight preview of all the fights going down this weekend. Also, whatever boxing news goes down over the past next couple of days. So I will see you guys back live on Thursday. May God bless you guys all. Have a blessed rest of you guys' night. I will see you guys, like I said, back live on Thursday. God bless you guys all. And with that being said, SchuZ out. God bless y'all.